So Mir, why don't you just start out by introducing yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is Constable Mir Lodhi. I am a police officer with the Toronto Police Service. I joined in 1998, May 5th. I started off as a civilian, as a court officer, and became a PC in 2000, a police constable. I've worked in various units. My current unit, which is my favorite, is the South and West Asian Liaison Officer, working under the Community Partnership Engagement Unit. So in a nutshell, what I basically do is foster relations with communities, particularly in my geographical portfolio. And what we do in this unit as well is we provide high quality outreach. This is a really nice role for me.
So tell me, before I want to talk to you about the role, but first, can you just tell me why you became a police officer? Because I love this story.
Very interesting. And thank you for asking me. And I say this, I get asked this all the time. So I was a kid, grew up in West Lodge in the Parkdale High Park area. And we lived in an apartment building, my brother, myself, and my parents. We didn't have that much, it was the 80s. But my mom knew I really wanted a bike. So for a period of a month or two, she and my dad, they saved up money, $100. So $100 is a lot for back then. You put into inflation now, you're looking at $200-300 probably for that bike.
Wow.
So she bought me a bike. I was all excited and I was able to ride with my friends. And, times were different back then. We used to ride from West Lodge to the CNE, and I was only 7-8 years old. Like, yeah, it was, without telling my parents, of course, right? But we used to ride everywhere. So one day, I went to a convenience store to get a freezie. I left my bike on the side of the store, came back, it was gone. So I said to myself, I'm going to become a police officer and I'm going to find out who stole my bike and charge them.
And have you done that yet?
No, but I found many, many other bikes and I've made many people happy. So
okay,
I'm still looking for my bike 32 years later. So
you have a description you want to throw out there just in case anybody's watching and sees this little bike ride?
BMX, all black. That's it.
Okay, anybody see an all black BMX? That's Constable Lodhi. Give him a call. Okay, please. Constable Lodhi, you said that your position now as the South and West Asian Liaison Officer is your favorite yet. But before we get to that, can you just tell me a little bit about your career, where you started out, how you got to this point?
Definitely. So I first started out as a court officer in 1998. I was a young pup. I was 20 years old when I applied. And 2 months after my 21st birthday, I received a letter of employment. And I bragged that to everybody because that was a huge accomplishment at the age of 21, working for a huge service. I was making more than my mom. So I back then. So, and then during my time as a court officer, I witnessed murder trials, sexual assault trials. I watched officers give evidence for both traffic and criminal. And believe it or not, I learned so much during then that made me a really good police officer. And then in 2000 December, I was hired. I applied to be a PC, was hired as a police constable, and ever since then, most of my time with the service has been in uniform, and that was by choice. I like being out there. I like doing different things. I like meeting with different people. I like helping people. I like putting closure to people's problems, and I've always been the type of guy to go above and beyond. And believe it or not, because of my experience as a court officer, observing officers give testimony, I developed my own templates to give evidence for traffic-related offenses, such as red light or speeding. And the justice of the peace, defense counsels, and prosecutors commended me. And this is all based on all the trials and errors that officers need to go through testifying. And I took notes. So yeah, when I started, I started at 32 Division on the road. Then I went into the warrants office, getting people that are wanted by us or issuing warrants. I did that for about a year. And then after I went into traffic, which was my second favorite, because I loved investigating an accidents. And again, there's a story to that as well. I was rear-ended hard. It was on the highway. OPP told all the vehicles involved to attend the collision reporting center. And I didn't like that, but I had to. And I had an injury as well. So I went to the collision reporting center, and unfortunately, the person that struck me on the highway, he was on his phone, and it wasn't illegal to be on your phone back then, but he wasn't held accountable, right? And at that time, there was a no-fault insurance, so I got jammed too through insurance for that collision, even though I was rear-ended. So I said, you know what? Let me become a traffic investigator and assist people I can, and I did. After that, I became a neighborhood officer, NCOs, and I worked in the Lawrence Heights area. And believe it or not, prior to me coming to that neighborhood, there was 4 of us, so I'm not taking all the credit. We didn't have a really good relationship with the community. There was a mutual distrust, and quite frankly, some of the calls we would go to, people would come out of their homes and start verbally abusing us or even swarming us. And usually we'd be calling for an assist. And 13th Division knows all about it. They border with us at 32, so they used to come and assist us all the time. After the embedded neighborhood officers, there was some measurements done. A metric was used by Humber College in cooperation with my current unit, the Community Partnership Engagement Unit. They did a survey, and we received an overwhelmingly over 80% of support. So that was quite an accomplishment for, prior to us being there to now. So it was a great accomplishment. After 32 Division, which I was there for at least 18 years, I believe.
Let me just stop you there for 1 second, Constable Lodhi, sure, because I want to talk about your next post, but I just want to talk a little bit more about something you just mentioned. First of all, how many years back are we going when you're talking about when you were, responding to Lawrence Heights and there was this mutual distrust? How many years back is that we're talking about?
Okay, since the beginning of when Toronto Housing was created at Lawrence Heights, there wasn't a very, good relationship between the police and the community there. And then I became a neighborhood officer in 2013.
So tell me then, like, before you became a neighborhood officer, where do you think that distrust was coming from? Because you said it was mutual, both sides. It's not just that the community members didn't trust the police, but you guys didn't trust the community members. What was that rooted in, would you say?
Well, unfortunately, in Lawrence Heights, it was one of the designated priority neighborhoods in Toronto. And that was just because of the high crime rate and shootings that were happening. So for us, it's like, okay, we do have a lot of shootings in the neighborhood, a lot of crime. So that's where maybe the perception of officers came from, just the high crime rate. And the people there, all they saw us doing was enforcement, right? Whether it was at that time street checks or just making arrests, they didn't see us in any other light. So when we came as neighborhood officers, we did barbecues, we sat down personally, we became personal with people. And I think that's what changed the mutual distrust.
Did it
what I did
your
as well,
view of the community as an officer who had patrolled there?
100%. And because, I got to see everybody, right? Coming from work on the weekends, cutting their lawn, sharing a meal with them, right? And I did quite a few projects. I had Thanks to Pro Action. I had a basketball program. I had another program, which 20,000 grant from the Ministry of Attorney General. So I took 15 to 20 at-risk youth from that neighborhood, which they normally wouldn't be able to do because of financial restraints, to the CN Tower, Ripley's, bought them breakfast, lunch, along with my colleagues, and bought them souvenirs. So, with all that, I think the community is like, hey, you know what? These guys are okay. They're here to do a job. And myself as well, right? And my colleagues are like, look, we're seeing people in a different way rather than responding to radio calls or anything else. And I think that's what changed everybody's minds.
Was it difficult at the beginning? Like, was there a barrier for you to get through, would you say, or did you just start doing your thing, building the relationships? Like, tell me what that was like. I find it so fascinating that you'd go from one end of the spectrum to the other.
It was very challenging. Like I said, there's a mutual distrust. And so what I did was I went up to the community leaders. Okay. I said, listen, I'm in this position because I want to be. No, I wasn't told to be in this position. I applied because I really want to be here and make a difference. I said, what can I do? So they said, look, get to the kids, do something for the kids, and have some food events, right? Just, to show us in a better light, and and tell show the parents, hey, look, we're doing stuff for your kids, because having a program is you have to dedicate a lot of time and effort. So that just shows that how much effort you're putting into it. So that's when, we were getting grants from the ministry, and support from Pro Action, and doing a whole lot of stuff. And I even gave my personal cell number to quite a few community members to call me anytime if there's any concerns or questions, or if they're hesitant to report a crime to police.
And did
So
your
that's
phone
how I
ring a
do it.
lot?
Once in a while, yes. Not too much, and that could be because people didn't need to, but once in a while, I would receive a call, and I'm like, you have to report this to the police. Just call this number and that number, be patient, and we'll take it from there, and I'll follow up with it. Yeah.
So you were going to tell me before I so rudely cut you off. After
You did not.
32 division, where did you go from there?
Okay, so 32 after 18 years, I needed a change. Oh, sorry, I got something here.
18 years is a long time to be in one division.
It is, but I was enjoying it a lot. Just working with different groups in 32. So how 32 is different from most of the other divisions is we have a diverse community. Okay, we have the Persian community, the Korean community, the Filipino community, the Black community, Anglo-Canadian, the Jewish. So it's so nice that you get to deal with everybody, as opposed to just dealing with same type of calls all the time, right? At 32 is so big. So in that sense, it was really nice. And I didn't want to leave, but I said I need a change, and I need a new challenge. So, and also to be closer to home. So I put in a transfer to 23 division, which is Rexdale.
Which is right next door, but it's a very different division, right? Like, so for anybody who's not familiar with the divisions, 32 divisions, like top center of the city, North York. 23 division is like Northwest Toronto that borders Mississauga, Brampton, Vaughan, all that stuff. Okay, so you arrive in 23, and what's the difference there that you see?
Oh my God, a huge difference. Okay. So Rexdale has the highest poverty rate in Ontario, the most gangs as well. So it was very, very different. I was in the big leagues, you could say. Not to say that 32 didn't have its unique dangers, but 23 was a very different division. My first call was, I was on my way, I was just patrolling Kipling, south of Finch. And then a call goes over, a hot shot, which means a 911 call saying shots fired, 2 males injured. And so I made a U-turn because I just passed by that scene. And as I passed by, it turned out that I actually passed by the persons of interest in that call. Thank God, nothing happened during me passing by them, because it could have turned out pretty dangerous, especially if the suspect or suspects had their weapons out. So I turned in, I saw a group of people looking at me and then pointing, and I saw the victim on the ground, and the victim didn't appear to be deceased at that time. Eyes were open. I immediately performed CPR till ambulance arrived, and then I accompanied the body in the ambulance to Sunnybrook, where unfortunately the victim ended up passing away. But after that, I said, you know what, I'm not at 32 anymore, and these are the calls like you would get at 23 division.
What impact did that have on you? That your first introduction to the division, what impact did that have on you?
I have a pretty good support system, both at home and at work, and I tend to block any negativity. So it may bother me for a while if it's a child death or some other gruesome call, but within like hours of coming home, I developed a system where I can block any negativity, and it's something I'm really proud of. But it was nevertheless, I'm still a human, right? And sometimes I have flashback of incidents. Like I'll never forget when I was at 32, I was there was a child struck call in the plaza at Yonge and Center, and I arrived within 2 minutes, and it was a 5-year-old child that was struck and run over by a car, and I'll never forget the face. So I was able, I was there, and the child died in front of me. So, things like that instances like that will come back. But for the most part, I can block stuff. So what was another sad thing to see in Rexdale is a lot of young South Asians with heart disease are passing away. And I'd go to, and this is just me, so imagine all the other officers as well. But I was going to calls with young South Asian males in their 40s and 50s having heart attacks. And I know this from a personal issue as well, but there is a genetic issue with South Asians when it comes to heart disease and diabetes and cholesterol. And it was just a wake-up call too. And I used to educate my friends who are of South Asian descent. I go, hey, listen, you could be eating healthy, you could be working out, but if you have genetic issues, you could have some serious problems. So go get checked by your doctor, get blood tests done. It won't hurt. And, a doctor that knows about these type of issues within that community, they'll probably send you to the right direction as well. Mm-hmm. So it's quite disturbing to see calls like that at 23.
It's really interesting to hear you bring that up, because I think that when the public thinks of police officers responding to death calls in particular, they're thinking about crime related. There's a stabbing, there's a shooting, a beating, whatever it is, or a collision. I don't think that the general public appreciates how much you as police officers are exposed to that has nothing to do with policing, really, like on the surface, that's not crime related. There's no charges that are laid, but you're still a human being and you're still witnessing that.
Yes. And, the only time we would have interactions with the public on the front line is either through traffic stops or calls. Or, I'd be having something to eat during my lunch if I choose to stay on the road, or just parking somewhere because I can't drive for the whole, 10 or 12 hour shift. And, I'd have people make comments saying, how come you're just sitting there and eating? Well, I'm not allowed to eat. I'm a human being, right? And I can park if I want to. I can't continuously drive for 10, 12 hours. But yeah, people don't understand that part. They don't know there's more to it than just arrest and, going to shooting calls. Like, we do a lot more. And, usually when I have conversations with friends or anybody and they're talking about defund the police, that's your opinion. But I say we do a lot more than just respond to shootings or, apprehending people. Like, we deal with sexual assault victims, we deal with domestic violence victims. We do a lot of other work unrelated to shootings. And yeah, people need to understand that as well. If you're working a 10 or 12 hour shift, you can go to up to 2 to 3 sudden death calls in your shift. Wow. It's not unheard of. Yes, and that could have an impact on you.
2 to 3 in one shift? That's not unusual?
Yeah. No. It all depends how fast a coroner comes to release the body. Sometimes they'll come within an hour or two, or sometimes longer. But if they come pretty quick, which in most of the cases, that's how it was for me. You do your report, you clear, you go on to the next call.
Now, I want to talk just a little bit more about this mental health stuff, because in the phone conversation we had before this conversation, you agreed that it's an important topic and something that you like to impart wisdom to other officers on. You said that you're proud of the system that you come up with over the years to, I guess, separate the negative stuff from your family life. What is your system? Like, do you actually have like a routine that you would go through? Specifically when you're a frontline officer, do you have a routine that you would go through after you would get home? Like, I've heard cops tell me over the years that, they had to take off their, they had to shower, like sort of shower off the day before hugging their kids or whatever. What's been your thing over the years to sort of wash off the day?
Well, for the record, I used to take a shower before and after.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So before you left the station, or what?
No, before I left for work at home, and then after work, I'd take a shower as well. That was just me. But no, it's very important. I remember when I was at the Toronto Police College for training to become a police constable, one of the sergeants, one of the instructors was saying, as a police officer, there's no on and off switch. You're a police officer for 24 hours, 7 days a week. That's true. However, when I used to come home, I used to press the off switch. I didn't want to think about anything I did that day. And it's very important that you unwind when you get home. whether it's to read a book, watch TV, have a glass of wine. That's not me. I don't drink alcohol, but I'm just putting it out there.
Mhm.
Or just having a snack, or even just talking to somebody, right? Whatever you feel comfortable with and you enjoy. But it's very important you do that after work. What I used to do in the earlier days of my career is I used to go out with a colleague after work when I was on day shift or afternoon shift, would go and have something to eat after work, right? And that really did relieve a lot of stress. And by the time I was home, I was relaxed. Over the years that ended just because of the late shifts and you're tired from a long day. So I'd do that at home, whether watching TV or just reading a book, and just to get my mind off of that day.
Was it always that way, or was there a point that you realized that you were taking this stuff home and it's like, okay, I don't like the person that I am at home right now and I need to change things?
Yes, absolutely. In the beginning of my career, that's how it was. And then I said, hey, I'm not an actor. I'm still a human being, and I want to be like a regular person when I take off my uniform, because that helps with your mental stability, right? If you just act like you're a police officer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're going to feel different. So what I try to do is once I'm home, I try to blend in with the community. It's hard to do because I've said this all the time. If you're a Toronto police officer, you're treated like a celebrity sometimes by your neighbors and by people. And you say, oh, these are blah, blah, and they want to talk to you. But I try to make it known I'm just a regular person, and I try to just blend in with everybody and talk about other subjects.
Talk about the Blue Jays, talk about the Leafs.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Raptors.
So the Raptors, yeah, Toronto FC. I mean, there's so much we could talk about. Argos, poor Argos aren't talked about as much as the others. But okay, so from 23 divisions, so how long were you in 23 and where did you go from there?
Close to 3 years. And all of a sudden I found out through our routine order, which is it's our own internal intranet, that this position became available. The South and West Asian Liaison officer. I'm like, oh my God. I read the details. I'm like, I want this job. So I started doing some networking, started making some calls. I applied. Originally 10 officers applied, and they screened out most, and there was 3, and I was one of 3. So I've always been good with interviews. Every job I basically applied for since I was a young kid, I've gotten. And
what jobs were you doing as a young kid?
Believe it or not, and I delivered both the Star and Sun. I used to canvass for both of them. Okay, at the age of 78, I don't think it was legal, but I did it. And then when I was 12 or 13, I did a lot of canvassing for the Toronto Star, and I was one of the top earners. And I used to receive a lot of prizes. And it's funny, I worked hard when I was a canvas for Toronto Star. I won this small TV from my mom. I'm talking 1991, 1992. My mom still has a small TV, and it has a lot of sentimental value. And I think at one time my dad almost damaged it, and my mom almost cried, and she got angry with my dad because she's like, "This means a lot to me." Right? I was a young kid, and I earned that from my mother through this Toronto Star canvassing points. But yeah, so every job I applied for, I did, and I have my own secret how I prepare for interviews.
What's your secret? Or I guess it wouldn't be a secret anymore, right? Can you tell us?
No, okay, so it's not a secret anymore. So what I used to do, I used to go in front of a mirror and do some mock interviews, or I used to pick up a newspaper and I used to read it out loud, just to help with my communication skills. Or I would, just think, hey, what are they going to ask me? Right? It's probably gonna be this and this, and I'll just prepare for that way, take notes. But most of all, I'd go in front of a mirror and just do some mock interviews. So I think a lot of people were looking at me weird in my family, but I think they understood why I did that later. And so I was called for an interview, and according to the interviewers, which one was a sergeant, a staff sergeant, and superintendent, they all said I killed the interview, and they wanted me right away. So right away, I came in, and I loved it. I started picking up phone calls, calling community leaders, organizations. I said, hey, I am the new South and West Asian Liaison Officer for the Toronto Police Service. This is my job. This is my mandate. I want to come and meet you and see how I can help you in your community and how you can help us as well, right? And I hit it off. I met everybody. I even went on the stage with Mayor Tory last year for the Taste of Middle East, and I got more applause than him.
Oh,
So
watch
yes,
out,
yes,
Mayor
yeah.
Tory.
And Taste of Middle East, it's an annual event that happens every year. So last year was at the Scarborough Town Center. It was a 3-day event. They loved what I said on the first day. They invited me for the second day and third day. And like
What
I
did
said, I
you
came on
say?
stage.
What did you say? What did you say to tug at the heartstrings of everybody over at the Scarborough Town
I
Center?
think they were more surprised to see a police officer at an event like this on a stage, thanking the community. You know, I think people were just shocked. Hey, I didn't know the police do stuff like this, right? And when I came off, I had to kiss babies. I have a picture to show you if you don't believe
No,
me.
you did not kiss babies.
I had
Wow.
to, and I took a lot of pictures as well. So it was like, wow.
How many
Wow, like, oh,
autographs?
no autograph, but lots of pictures.
The
And both the
autographs are
mayor
to
and
come.
I,
Don't worry.
yeah, thank you. And both the mayor and I, we walked out the stage, and then people were coming to me. I'm like, oh.
Wow.
So it was really interesting. And you know, on top of this, I also was in a documentary. Um, a producer approached me and said, "Hey, look, we want to do some documentary on South Asian police officers. Can you help us?" I'm like, "Sure." So I gave them a storyline. I said, "Hey, look, let's bring in this officer, this officer, this officer. I'll be in it." And the producer, they rented a whole theater at the Mississauga Coliseum. Number 10, it was the biggest. They had a film festival. They put this documentary on, and they're trying to, believe it or not, they're trying to put it on Amazon. It takes a while apparently, but they're trying to put this documentary. It's called Agent 786. It's not available right now to the public, just because they're trying to put it on Amazon. So I couldn't believe all the things I was doing. And I think the reason why I was so successful is because I made myself available at home, like I did when I was a neighborhood officer. And I'm not gonna, you know, turn off my phone at 3 p.m. when I'm done, because that's not fair to the community or public. So I was taking phone calls on the weekends, evenings, to address any issues, whether it was a traffic stop, to somebody approaching community leaders saying, "Hey, look, I got a domestic situation or a sexual assault situation." And of course, I'd always make sure that the victim's safe and call the police. That's what I was telling them. Because a lot of people, believe it or not, are hesitant. I should say a lot of people, sorry. There are people that are hesitant to get the police involved, or they don't know what to do.
Do you mean, are you speaking generally or specifically to the community that you are the liaison officer for, specifically to the South and West Asian community?
You know, I can pretty much say I'm speaking generally, and I'll tell you why. We know a lot of incidents out there are underreported, right? Domestic, hate crime. Not everybody reports those, right? So we know. And during my time at 32, I remember when I used to respond to robbery calls, some of the calls I used to go to were like 4-6 hours old, even a day or 2 day old. And I would ask the complainant, "Why are you calling us after? Like, if you called us right then, it would be better for us," right? He said, "Oh, I didn't know I needed to call you guys. I just called a friend of mine." And they're like, "No, you should report this to the police." Why, I don't know, but and that's why we try to educate people to report crime. Right now, we have all these other options available for people to report online, calling us, rather than having an officer attend. So it's much easier to report incidents. But yes, even in the community I serve, the South and West Asian communities, they tend to be a little bit hesitant to call police for certain issues as well.
You said at the beginning of this conversation that this is your favorite post yet, but what made you want to do it to begin with? Because I imagine there's some things about the role that have maybe surprised you, delighted you, whatever. But when that was posted, what made you want to apply?
Main reason, so when I was at 23 Division, I was involved with communities, but I was only able to do it part-time because my primary function was to respond to radio calls. And I'm like, hey, if I take this position, I can do my outreach full-time. So that was the main reason. And lo and behold, not only am I doing that, but I'm like a celebrity. Right after this, I have another podcast at 7 p.m.
Wow.
And I have a weekly radio show every Monday. So yeah, it's like, and I'm on TV quite a bit as well. So yeah,
it seems like a really perfect fit for your personality.
It is, and everybody tells me like I'm not lying. This would happen a few times. Last week, I was in an ice cream shop in Mississauga. One guy came up to me saying, "Oh my God, it's the world famous Toronto police cop." He recognized me from my social media post. 2 weeks ago, I was at an event at the Sheraton Hotel, downtown Toronto on Queen Street. I was done. I was crossing Nathan Phillips Square. A guy and a girl running, yelling my name, Mir, Mir, Mir. And I'm turning around. And I'm like, I don't recognize these people. And the guy's staring at me and he's like, I want a picture with you. I'm like, okay. I'm like, and I was in my business suit. I was in my uniform. So I said, I don't know you. Where can I ask, please? Like, how do you know me? He goes through social media. And then they started taking. So they wanted pictures with me. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm no Tom Cruise or anything, but and then
come on.
Well, I don't have his hair, but anyways, that's happening quite a bit, and people are recognizing me from social media, and they're generally surprised that, oh, I didn't know police, they reach out to communities like this, and I think that's where they're shocked to see what I do.
What do you think has changed? Because I mean, I've been speaking with a number of officers, and so many have said, the public doesn't realize police officers do this. And I think that when you and I spoke previously, you said something like, that the police service is more transparent than it's ever been, or you've seen changes over the years. Like, what have you seen change? You mentioned the neighborhood officer program, how that really helped build trust on both sides. But what have you seen change over the years since you started all those years ago?
The Toronto Police Service has evolved, right, since I started, and that's probably because now the service is actually working with communities and groups to say, hey, how can we improve? How can we be more approachable, right? And as far as describing a person, to what should we do, in a religious establishment, to how should we act and how should we respect you. And that's what we've been doing over the years to change ourselves, to be more adaptable to our community, the communities we serve. And I think that's what is the biggest thing that the service has done, is just we are now working mostly with grassroots organizations to see how we can do better. Because when I first started, it was all about get there, answer radio calls, it's your turn to go and write tickets. It was just going back and forth. Not that we didn't have any community relations, but it wasn't as much as now, right?
It's a real focus
it's all
now.
about, yes, now it's all focusing on about customer service.
Yes. So I wonder, so yeah, you say as it should be, and I'm inclined to agree with you, but I feel like some people who are watching this might be saying, I think it's great that you're going and building all these relationships and everything, but does it need to be a police officer doing that? Like, how does it contribute to a safer community? Like, just, you're sworn to serve and protect the citizens of Toronto. How does you going to the Scarborough Town Center and taking pictures and, meeting all your fans, how does that help create a safer community? How do those relationships play a role?
Because when there's a police officer everywhere, we're preventing crime. People are not going to generally won't do stuff in front of us. Secondly, what I'm doing is I'm showing the public we're here for you. Okay, regardless if I'm on the stage or on a podcast, I'm basically educating the community, which in turn helps us. So for example, the weekly radio show I'm on, it's mostly about crime prevention tips. So last week, Monday, I did a segment on how to protect yourself from roofers, right? Prior to that, how to protect yourself from contractors. Next week, I'm going to talk about how to file a complaint on contractors, and then water safety tips. So in that way, technically, I'm saving lives if I'm giving water safety tips. I'm also saving people from becoming victims of crimes, because the biggest issue with the South Asian community is falling to these Revenue Canada scams or all these other scams. So by me educating people through podcasts, radio shows, TV shows, and I'm telling them to pass it on to their parents or grandparents, especially if they can't speak English, that police, we're independent. We don't work with the government and collect money or arrest you. That's not what we do here in Canada. We're totally independent, and we have nothing to do with Revenue Canada collections. We'll only investigate frauds. we're saving ourselves work too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was at 32 Division, I used to take a lot of reports from people that were victims of the Revenue Canada scam,
Mm-hmm.
where somebody would call and saying, you owe this much money. They're an agent, an officer from Revenue Canada scam. So by educating people, I'm not only preventing and stopping a victim from becoming a crime, but also saving us from a workload.
Mm.
And even telling when I go to these events, I educate people on our Crime Stoppers. Hey, if you're hesitant to be a witness or to report something, call our Crime Stoppers, right? You can remain anonymous and provide all this information to help us.
And I suppose like the relationships that you're creating would probably make some people who would be reluctant to call police more comfortable
100%.
calling police when something happens.
Yes. For example, a year and a half ago, I was very happy. I was invited by the Syrian Foundation, Canadian Syrian Foundation,
Mm-hmm.
to speak with Syrian kids, refugee kids that are new to the country, and they're experiencing some issues, some bullying issues that the school wasn't able to handle. It fell under probably under the criminal code threshold,
Wow.
and they didn't know they can call us because back home you wouldn't be calling the police for stuff like this, right? And I said, no, we will investigate it, right, and work with the schools to address this issue.
Mm-hmm.
And this, most of the kids lived in Mississauga, so I said, please call Peel Police. This is a non-emergency number,
Mm-hmm.
or even take your son to the local police station, and deal with it this way too.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we know, bullying is a very serious issue. It can cause distress and suicide among our young people as well, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that way I'm educating them, saying, no, you don't have to take it. These other venues you can do. And we also have a bullying campaign where we try to educate students about
Mm-hmm.
bullying.
I wonder, because you spoke about your time as a neighborhood officer in Lawrence Heights and now in your current role, like neighborhood officers, there's a lot more of them now in Toronto than there were back when you were working in 32 Division. Did you notice a difference, and have you noticed a difference in your current role? Like when something bad happens, not only are people more comfortable calling police to report something, but do you find it also helps in having people come forward with information like witnesses? Like, I think about so many homicides I covered over the years as a reporter in Toronto, and that what seemed to be the biggest thing for investigators was getting witnesses to pick up the phone and call police.
Yes. When I was a neighborhood officer for Lawrence Heights, I used to receive a lot of information about crime and suspects. And I was able to do that because of the person I am. And I was able to do that because I was able to build trust. And what people wanted, the people that were providing me information, they wanted to assist police because they wanted a safer neighborhood, but they just didn't trust the police. They didn't know that they can remain anonymous, or these are witness protection program. They didn't, even though we what we'll tell everybody there is, but they didn't know that. So when you tell them personally, about this and this, and you build trust, they'll say, hey, I can trust this guy, right? And I'll be honest.
Go ahead.
And I'd be honest with people. I'll tell them, right? This and this and this, and I think they really appreciated that I was honest.
Do you still feel yourself coming up against that antitrust, or do you feel like in your current role you've already you got the celebrity status, you got the social media? Do you still find yourself in situations where people just dismiss you because of the uniform that you wear?
100%. It still happens, and we can't please everybody. Unfortunately, sometimes minds are made up. There are, when I go to meetings, there are people that don't want to listen. Like you said, they're dismissive, or they don't want a relationship with police, and that's fine. We can't please everybody, although we will try. But when I get into these deep conversations with people, why they have a hatred for police, first of all, I tell them, look, I understand. It just takes one police officer to break the trust, right, with our communities. One incident. And, it can just take one police officer, an incident to ruin all the relationships we built. But what I tell them is, look, we're a big, large police service, okay? Incidents are going to happen. That doesn't mean you paint the whole service in a bad picture. When you ask me that question, what do I say to people saying, hey, what's the benefit the community gets with you going on stage or going on radio shows. Policing is not all about arrests, right? Investigating serious crime. There's more to it as well, right? These different function every police service. Community is a big function. Community relations, like Sir Robert Peel's famous principles: police are the public, public are the police. If you lose the trust of the public, we won't be able to function, right? Because the public, they sit on juries, there are eyes and ears, right? They're there to support us. So it's really important to maintain this link with the community. You take out the community function, all we're going to be is, you're calling us to go and arrest or investigate a crime like the old days. So you need a strong community component of each police service to tell people this is not all we do, to educate people. So that's what I usually tell people too. Like, we're not all about arrest. Would you like your police service to only arrest or give out tickets, only respond to radio calls? No, you want to see police officers. You want to see them out there, whether it's a community event or walking your neighborhood. And that alone, with our presence, it prevents crimes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Constable Lodhi, is there anything else that you want the public to know about you as a person, as a human being, or your fellow officers or the profession?
Yes. Thank you. I've been here for almost an hour with you. This is who I am, whether in my uniform or out of my uniform. All I tell everybody is just give us a chance. We're there for you. We want to work for you. We're held accountable for everything we do. We have body-worn cameras. Everything we do is recorded. And sometimes if you see an officer that may be grumpy or may not be happy, it could be because they've had a really disturbing call, maybe lack of sleep. During my traffic times, I'd be working afternoons and I would have court in the morning. And this could go on for 2-3 days with 3 to 4 hours of sleep. So, by the end of the week, I'm not going to be, too happy, right? But nevertheless, I maintain my professionalism. So just please understand that. And the biggest thing is there's more to it than what you see on TV. I'll say this quickly. After the Toronto Police Service was involved in working with the city to clear out the encampment, I received a lot of negative comments on my social media about it. Once again, I had nothing to do with it and I didn't know too much. But if people would just look at the steps the police service and the city took prior to any situation, I think it would help a lot as well. For example, a lot of the South Asian communities meetings I used to go to, one of the most contentious topics that would be brought up is police shootings. And one is particularly on Mr. Chowdhury's shooting in Malton. Peel Regional Police was involved. So I tell them, listen, I obviously I can't talk about it because I'm not involved. It's a Peel Regional Police issue. But what I urge people to do is read the SIU report, because it's very detailed and it will tell you what all's been done and how they came to that conclusion. And so just get the whole picture before you make the decision. That's all. Yeah.
And if you have any doubts, pick up the phone and call Constable Lodhi. And
yes, or email me at 99765@tps.ca.
Awesome. And I should mention, because I don't think that you did mention, you were talking about all the calls and the work you do from home. That's on your time. You're not paid for that, right?
No. Nope. I have 2 phones here. One is my personal phone. As you can see, it's James Bond. I'm a big fan of his.
Oh, very nice.
And my work phone. Okay. I make myself available. Even when I'm on vacation, I take both the phones. I did a couple of meetings in Alberta last year, which kind of upset my family seeing you're on vacation. And so, yes.
Where did you go in Alberta?
Calgary.
Nice.
Banff, and I believe, is it Waterton or Waterdown? Just an hour from Calgary. Beautiful. It's at the border with Montana.
Okay. Oh, nice.
And I captured 2 baby bears fighting.
Wow.
It was absolutely amazing. Beautiful. Yeah.
Are you sure they were fighting and not playing?
I think they were playing. I'll just say playing.
I only asked that because when I was driving my kids somewhere the other day, we have a 3-year-old, 5-year-old, and a 7-year-old. We saw 2 rabbits on the side of the road, sort of tussling. And my 3-year-old said, the rabbits are playing. And my 7-year-old said, the rabbits are fighting. And then they started arguing over whether they were playing or whether they were fighting.
Maybe they were playing, I don't know, but it was incredible to see that, because you don't see that in Toronto, obviously, or
I know.
in the Weston where I live in. It was just, and then just to see the beautiful Montana mountains,
Yeah.
and the air is different, the sky is different, the people are different, like everybody, it was so nice. It was not that the big city issues with traffic congestions. And I remember last week I was I was on duty, but I was in my regular clothes in an unmarked police van. I had a meeting at headquarters, and as I was driving, I was getting honked at, and I'm like, I don't know if I was moving fast enough, because as you know, most streets now in Toronto are either 30 or 40, right? Because of the Vision Zero project, and I was getting honked at, and I'm like, only these people knew I was a cop, but I'm like, I was getting honked quite a bit, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just like, I'm following the rules, but it's just like there's so much of honking and road rages and this and this, and when you go to a beautiful place like Banff or Waterdown, you're like, oh my God. So
the mountains
nice.
bring me peace too.
Yes, the woods.
Get into the mountains, and it's just the negativity goes away. And I get the feeling that that's why you loved your current job so much, because you love that positive energy. You love to give it. You love to take it.
Yes, 100%. And when I talk to at-risk youth, I give them my own personal story. I said, look, I was in a situation like you. I came from India when I was 4 years old. With my parents and my brother. We were renting rooms in a home along with other people, and the other people in that house didn't take too kindly of us. There was some incidents in the home where they were giving us a hard time, which made us move from the house to an apartment. And the apartment, West Lodge at that time, it wasn't a very nice building. And this was the 80s. But I was able to persevere, right? I overcame all these obstacles to be who I am today and where I am today. So I said, look, this could be you as well, right? Don't let one or two incidents, and everybody has their problems. Everybody has problems. There's nobody that's problem free. And that's what I tell people. I go, as a police officer, whether it's upper class, middle class, or like, everybody has problems. You just need to learn to overcome it. Perseverance. That's what I tell everybody. Persevere and aim for something high, not low, right? And you will be able to accomplish it here.
I love that. And maybe get a little TV for your mom.
Yes. I have to get a TV for my dad, apparently, my brother is saying now.
Oh, really?
He's a TV in his room, so I'll be getting one.
Is he going to expect the same little TV or something maybe a little bit bigger?
No, I think he probably wants a 40-inch or 48-inch.
Yeah, flat screen, all that, smart TV, Netflix, hook it up with everything.
Yeah.
Can't really get that on your paper route, right?
My dad is old tradition. He doesn't want these remotes. He wants that old box, where you press the channel, the 80s ones. That's what he wants.
Can you even get that anymore?
I don't think you can, but I'm going to Google and see if I can get it for him.
Yeah.
How compatible it's going to be.
You could probably find it on eBay or something, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty funny. Okay, well, thank you so much, Constable Lodhi. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you a little bit. Thanks for sharing yourself with us.
Thank you, Tamara. Thank you for all you're doing. It's very important that we show the public, hey, we're like you. We just have a job to do, but we're like you. So thank you very much.
It's my absolute pleasure.